Narrator, Stories from the Dark presents. This is Beneath the Surface, Episode 1, Cedar Heights, Washington. Population 67,000. Nestled between dense forests and the rugged Pacific coastline, it's the kind of mid-sized American city that rarely makes national headlines. November 14th, 2023. A Tuesday. The forecast called for rain, not unusual for the Pacific Northwest in November. By all accounts, it was an ordinary autumn day. For Eliza Mosley, it would be her last normal day. At 7:36 a.m., security cameras at the Daily Grind coffee shop on Main Street captured 27-year-old Eliza Mosley ordering her usual, a medium latte with an extra shot of espresso. The barista, Kevin Winters, would later recall their brief interaction. Kevin Winters, she was a regular, came in 3 or 4 times a week. Always got the same thing. That morning was nothing unusual. She seemed normal, maybe a little tired, but who isn't on a Tuesday morning, right? We chatted about the rain. She tipped her usual $1, and that was it. If I'd known, I don't know. I wish I'd paid more attention. Narrator, by 8:15 a.m., Eliza had arrived at Bayview Financial where she worked as a junior financial analyst. Security badge records confirm she entered the building at 8:13 a.m. Coworkers described her as focused and professional that day, attending a morning team meeting and working on quarterly reports. Madison Chen, we shared a cubicle wall. She mentioned she was planning to go for a run that evening because the rain was supposed to let up. Asked if I wanted to join, but I had plans. She was excited about some dinner recipe she was going to try. Something with salmon, I think. It was just a completely normal workday. Narrator, at 5:22 p.m., Eliza's computer activity at Bayview Financial ceased. Security footage shows her leaving the building at 5:31 p.m., carrying her work bag and a small grocery store bag, likely containing ingredients for the salmon dinner she had mentioned to Madison. Traffic cameras picked up Eliza's silver 2019 Honda Civic heading west on Harborview Drive at 5:43 p.m. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Eliza Mosley. The next morning, when Eliza failed to arrive at work, her absence was initially attributed to illness. It wasn't until she missed an important client meeting at 2 p.m. that her co-workers became concerned. Madison Chen. It wasn't like her to miss the Phillips account meeting. She'd been preparing for it all week. I texted her around 2:15, just asking if she was okay. When she didn't respond by 4 o'clock, I was worried enough to call her emergency contact. Her sister, Jessica. Narrator. Jessica Mosley hadn't heard from her sister either. By 6:45 p.m. on November 15th, approximately 25 hours after Eliza was last seen, Jessica Mosley reported her sister missing to the Cedar Heights Police Department. Detective Olivia Reyes of the Cedar Heights Police Department's Major Crimes Unit was assigned to Eliza Mosley's case. With 12 years on the force and a reputation for methodical investigation, Reyes would lead what would become one of Cedar Heights' most perplexing cases. Detective Olivia Reyes. Initially, we approach adult missing persons cases with tempered concern. Adults have the right to go missing if they choose to. But there were immediate red flags in Eliza's case. No communication with family or friends, missing work without notice, and her phone going straight to voicemail. We established a timeline and began the standard procedures. Narrator. By 8:30 p.m. on November 15th, Detective Reyes arrived at Eliza's apartment in the Bayside Vista complex on the west side of Cedar Heights. Jessica Mosley met her there with a spare key. Detective Olivia Reyes, the apartment was undisturbed. No signs of forced entry or struggle. Her bed was made. The grocery bag she was seen carrying on security footage was on the kitchen counter. Salmon fillets, asparagus, and a lemon. Her running shoes were missing, but her purse and wallet were on the entryway table. Her car wasn't in the assigned parking space. Most concerning was that her phone charger was still plugged in by her bed, but her phone was nowhere to be found. Jessica Mosley. Everything looked normal, like she just stepped out and would be back any minute. But her running clothes were gone, and Eliza always charged her phone at night. Always. She wouldn't have gone for a run without her phone. She listened to podcasts while running. Narrator. At 10:15 p.m., Detective Reyes issued a bolo, "Be on the lookout," for Eliza's silver Honda Civic. By midnight, a preliminary missing person report was filed, and the investigation officially began. Detective Olivia Reyes. We started with the standard protocols: checking hospitals, pulling cell phone records, credit card activity. Her phone last pinged a tower near Crestview Park around 6:30 p.m. on the 14th. After that, nothing. Either turned off or battery depleted. No credit card activity after a small charge at the grocery store on her way home from work. We began canvassing the neighborhood and park area the next morning. Narrator, Crestview Park, where Eliza's phone last pinged, spans 140 acres of heavily wooded trails along the northern edge of Cedar Heights. It's a popular spot for runners and hikers, with winding paths that offer views of the bay. On the morning of November 16th, a search team of 24 officers and volunteers began combing the park. Officer Marcus Thompson. The rain had continued off and on for days, which complicated our search efforts. Tracks would have been washed away, but we had K9 units and a pretty thorough grid search pattern. By mid-afternoon, we'd found nothing. No articles of clothing, no phone, no signs of disturbance. Narrator. As the second day of Eliza's disappearance stretched into the third, the investigation broadened. Law enforcement officials began examining Eliza's personal life in greater detail, looking for anything that might explain her sudden disappearance. Detective Olivia Reyes. We look at every angle in cases like this. Was there a boyfriend or relationship issue? Financial problems? Mental health concerns? Substance abuse? With Eliza, none of these typical red flags appeared. She was financially stable, no significant romantic relationship at the time, well-liked at work, close with her sister. Her internet search history showed nothing concerning, just recipes, Netflix shows, running routes in Crestview Park, and work-related research. Eliza Mosley. We talked at least twice a week. She'd just been promoted. She was planning to come home for Thanksgiving the following week. She'd already bought her plane ticket to Denver to visit our parents. There was absolutely nothing to suggest she would just vanish. Narrator. On the morning of November 17th, nearly 60 hours after Eliza was last seen, a significant development occurred. At approximately 7:15 a.m. on November 17th, Marcus Delgado, a 62-year-old retiree walking his dog in a remote section of Crestview Park, discovered Eliza Mosley's silver Honda Civic. Marcus Delgado. I take my lab, Rusty, through those trails most mornings. There's the service road that maintenance vehicles use. It's gated, but people sometimes park near there if the main lot is full. The car was maybe 30 yards down that service road, partially hidden by rhododendron bushes. I wouldn't have noticed it if Rusty hadn't been pulling that direction. When I got closer, I saw it had been there a while. Windows were fogged up inside. That's when I called 911. Narrator. Police arrived at the scene within 12 minutes. The car was locked, with no signs of forced entry. The location was approximately 1.2 miles from the main park entrance, in an area with no security cameras. Detective Olivia Reyes. The vehicle's condition told us a lot. It was deliberately parked where it wouldn't be easily spotted from the main trail. The driver's seat was adjusted for someone of Eliza's height. Her work bag was on the passenger's seat with her laptop inside. Her running shoes weren't in the car, supporting our theory that she had changed and gone for a run. But the groceries weren't in the car either, which aligned with the observation that they had been brought into her apartment. Narrator. Forensic examination of the vehicle revealed no signs of struggle or violence. Eliza's fingerprints were found in expected locations: steering wheel, door handle, radio controls. The car's GPS system showed the vehicle had driven directly from Bayside Vista Apartments to Crestview Park on the evening of November 14th, arriving at approximately 6:23 p.m. Forensic technician Sarah Williams. We processed the vehicle thoroughly. There were no indications of anyone else having been in the car. The last programmed destination in the GPS was indeed the park. The timestamp matched our timeline. Everything suggested she arrived at the park normally, parked deliberately, and then left the vehicle of her own accord. Narrator. With the discovery of Eliza's car, the search efforts intensified. 4 K-9 units, a police helicopter, and over 50 volunteers combed the park and surrounding areas. Eliza's running clothes from her apartment were used to give the dogs her scent. At 11:42 a.m., approximately a quarter mile from where the car was found, along a less traveled trail that loops around the north side of Crestview Lake, one of the K-9 units alerted. K-9 Officer Jeremy Walsh, Atlas, my Belgian Malinois, caught something near the lakeside trail. There's a small clearing there with a bench overlooking the water. He became very focused and led us to an area about 15 feet off the path, in some denser underbrush. Narrator: what Officer Walsh and Atlas discovered was Eliza Mosley's phone, a white iPhone 13 in a distinctive blue case with a sunflower pattern. The phone was powered off and partially covered by fallen leaves and soil, as if it had been there for several days. Detective Olivia Reyes, finding the phone was significant. It was dead when we recovered it, but once charged, we discovered it was still locked. No new fingerprints were found on it besides Eliza's. The last activity on the phone was a fitness tracking app that had been initiated at 6:42 p.m. on November 14th, a running session that was never completed or manually ended. Narrator: the running app provided a partial trail of Eliza's movements. It showed she had started along the main Lake Loop Trail. Maintaining a steady pace of approximately 9 minutes per mile, the tracking stopped abruptly about 1.3 miles into her run, in the vicinity of where the phone was discovered. Tech specialist Devin Parker: when a running tracking app stops unexpectedly, it's usually for one of several reasons. The user manually stops it, the phone dies, the phone is damaged, or the phone loses signal. In this case, the battery was at 74% when the tracking stopped. The phone wasn't damaged, and that area of the park has reasonable cell coverage. So the most likely explanation is that the phone was either deliberately turned off or dropped with enough force to trigger a shutdown. Narrator: despite the discovery of the phone, Eliza herself was nowhere to be found. The search expanded to cover the entire 140-acre park and beyond, into adjacent wooded areas and the shores of Crestview Lake. By November 19th, 5 days after Eliza Mosley's disappearance, the case had captured public attention. Cedar Heights Police Chief Robert Garrison held a press conference. Police Chief Robert Garrison: we are utilizing every resource available to locate Ms. Mosley. Our investigation remains active and ongoing. At this time, we have not found evidence of foul play, but we are not ruling out any possibilities. We ask anyone who was at Crestview Park on the evening of November 14th between 6 o'clock and 9 p.m. to contact our department with any information, no matter how insignificant it may seem. Narrator: following the press conference, several witnesses came forward. One of them was Diane Murray, a 58-year-old birdwatcher who had been at Crestview Park that evening. Diane Murray: I was there until about 7:15, watching for barred owls. They're most active around dusk this time of year. I remember seeing a young woman running on the trail, athletic build, dark ponytail, light-colored running jacket. I can't be 100% certain it was the missing woman, but the timing and description match. She passed by me heading north on the lake trail, toward the more remote section of the park. She seemed normal, focused on her run. I didn't notice anyone following her or anything unusual. Narrator: another witness, Trevor Blackwell, a 34-year-old high school science teacher, reported seeing something potentially significant. Trevor Blackwell: I was walking my dog around 7 p.m. near the North Trail. I saw a woman running. Matches the description they've given of Eliza Mosley. About 15 minutes later, I heard what sounded like a short scream or shout from the direction she had gone. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Could have been a startled hiker, kids playing, all sorts of things. But after seeing the news, I wish I'd investigated or called someone. Narrator: Detective Reyes and her team pursued these new leads, focusing particular attention on the North Trail area where Trevor Blackwell had heard the potential scream. Detective Olivia Reyes: witness accounts like these are helpful but need corroboration. We intensified our search of the North Trail area, bringing in additional K-9 units specialized in detecting human remains. The challenging terrain and continued intermittent rain complicated our efforts, but we were committed to being thorough. Narrator: While the physical search continued, investigators also delved deeper into Eliza's digital footprint. Her laptop, recovered from her car, was examined by the Cedar Heights Police Department's digital forensics team. Tech specialist Devin Parker. Her laptop activity was consistent with what we'd expect from a financial analyst. Work documents, emails, Netflix usage. Nothing unusual in her search history, no concerning communications. But we did find something interesting in her email drafts folder. A note to her boss that was never sent, dated November 13th, the day before she disappeared. Narrator, the draft email read, "I've been thinking about our conversation regarding the Phillips account discrepancies. I'm not comfortable with the approach we discussed. There's something about these numbers that doesn't add up. Can we meet privately to discuss further options? I found something that might explain the inconsistencies." Detective Olivia Reyes. This email draft raised questions about potential work-related issues. We immediately contacted Eliza's supervisor at Bayview Financial, Gregory Phillips. No relation to the Phillips account mentioned in the email. Gregory Phillips. Eliza had expressed some concerns about irregularities in the quarterly reports for one of our major clients, Phillips Manufacturing. Nothing serious, just some discrepancies in their reported inventory versus revenue. I told her to double-check her work before raising flags. In our business, accuracy is everything. I certainly didn't think it was anything that would lead to this. Narrator, Bayview Financial cooperated with the investigation, providing access to Eliza's work files and the Phillips Manufacturing account information. Forensic accountants were brought in to examine the financial records in question. Forensic accountant Victor Zhao. We conducted a preliminary examination of the Phillips Manufacturing account. There were indeed some inconsistencies in their quarterly reports, specifically inventory values that didn't align with reported sales figures. It could indicate simple accounting errors or potentially deliberate misrepresentation. However, the discrepancies were relatively minor, approximately $250,000 in questionable transactions out of a $40 million quarterly statement. Not typically the kind of thing that would put someone in danger. Narrator, as investigators explored the potential financial angle, another lead emerged from Eliza's phone records. Detective Olivia Reyes. We found that on November 13th, the day before she disappeared, Eliza had received 3 calls from the same unknown number. Each call lasted less than 30 seconds. The number was registered to a prepaid phone that had been activated just 2 days earlier and was disconnected on November 15th, the day after Eliza went missing. Narrator, the mysterious caller couldn't be immediately identified. The prepaid phone had been purchased with cash at a convenience store in neighboring Rockport, approximately 20 miles from Cedar Heights. The store's security camera footage had already been overwritten by the time investigators requested it. Detective Olivia Reyes. The timing of these calls, combined with the email draft and the carefully anonymized nature of the prepaid phone, suggested that whatever Eliza had discovered in the Phillips account might have been more significant than initially apparent. We began to consider the possibility that her disappearance was not accidental or voluntary. Narrator, 7 days into the investigation, on November 21st, a new development dramatically shifted the course of the case. At approximately 6:20 a.m. on November 21st, Crestview Park maintenance worker Miguel Sanchez was clearing fallen branches from trails after an overnight windstorm when he made an alarming discovery. Miguel Sanchez. I was working near the north side of the lake, where there's this small drainage culvert that runs under the trail. The storm had washed away some of the soil around the entrance. That's when I saw something blue sticking out from the side of the embankment, maybe 10 feet down from the trail. I got closer and realized it was fabric. Looked like someone had buried something. I called my supervisor right away. Narrator, police arrived at the scene within 25 minutes. What Miguel Sanchez had discovered was a shallow grave, partially exposed by the overnight rainfall and erosion. Inside was a blue running jacket, the same color and brand that Eliza Mosley was believed to have been wearing when she disappeared. Detective Olivia Reyes, we carefully excavated the site, following all proper forensic protocols. The blue jacket was confirmed to be Eliza's by the brand, size, and a distinctive Cedar Heights half-marathon 2022 pin attached to the zipper pull. But what was most significant was what we didn't find. There were no human remains in the grave. The jacket had been buried alone, approximately 18 inches deep. Narrator: the discovery transformed the investigation. What had been classified as a missing person case was now being treated as a potential abduction. Police Chief Robert Garrison: based on evidence uncovered during our ongoing investigation, we are now treating the disappearance of Eliza Mosley as a suspected abduction. We have reason to believe Miss Mosley may have been taken against her will. The FBI has been brought in to assist with the investigation, and we're dedicating all available resources to finding her. A $50,000 reward is being offered for information leading to Eliza's safe return. Narrator: forensic examination of the buried jacket revealed crucial evidence. Forensic technician Sarah Williams: the jacket had soil consistent with the burial site, but also traces of an industrial-grade cleaning solvent, specifically a type used in automotive and manufacturing facilities. There were no blood or biological traces on the jacket, despite the presence of this harsh chemical. It appeared that someone had attempted to clean the jacket thoroughly before burying it. Narrator: the soil around the burial site was also analyzed. Forensic technician Sarah Williams: the disturbed area was approximately 3 feet by 2 feet, much smaller than would be needed for a body. Evidence suggested the jacket had been buried with a small folding shovel or entrenching tool rather than a full-sized shovel. The soil compaction and tool marks indicated the burial had occurred between 24 and 48 hours prior to discovery, meaning someone had returned to the park days after Eliza's disappearance to bury the jacket. Narrator: this timeline suggested that whoever was responsible had taken a significant risk, returning to the scene during the height of the search efforts. Police doubled security at the park and reviewed all security footage from nearby businesses and traffic cameras for the relevant time frame. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski: the decision to return to the park and bury evidence suggests several possibilities. 1. The perpetrator has a psychological need to revisit the scene. 2. They were under pressure to dispose of evidence quickly. Or 3, and most concerning, they're actively monitoring the investigation and wanted to control what evidence was discovered and when. Narrator: with the FBI now involved, the investigation expanded significantly. Phillips Manufacturing came under closer scrutiny. Detective Olivia Reyes: we obtained warrants to examine Phillips Manufacturing's complete financial records and internal communications. Their primary production facility is located just outside Cedar Heights. The industrial cleaner found on Eliza's jacket is commonly used in manufacturing plants like theirs, though it's also used in many other industrial settings. Narrator: Phillips Manufacturing, a family-owned business established in 1978, produces precision metal components for the aerospace industry. With approximately 350 employees and annual revenue of $160 million, it's one of the largest employers in Cedar Heights. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski: our financial analysis team identified what appears to be a sophisticated embezzlement scheme within Phillips Manufacturing. Over the past 3 years, approximately $4.2 million had been diverted through false inventory reports and fabricated equipment purchases. The discrepancies Eliza Mosley identified were just the tip of the iceberg. Narrator: on November 23rd, 9 days after Eliza's disappearance, FBI agents interviewed Phillips Manufacturing's Chief Financial Officer, Lawrence Whitman. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski: Mr. Whitman initially cooperated with questioning. He acknowledged being aware of some accounting irregularities, but denied any deliberate wrongdoing. When confronted with evidence of the embezzlement scheme, he requested an attorney and declined to answer further questions. Narrator: that same evening, agents obtained a warrant to search Lawrence Whitman's residence. What they discovered there would break the case wide open. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski: in Whitman's garage, we found traces of the same industrial cleaner that was present on Eliza's jacket. In his home office, hidden in a locked desk drawer, was a prepaid phone matching the one used to call Eliza prior to her disappearance. And in his vehicle, a black 2022 Range Rover, we found a folding tactical shovel with soil residue, consistent with the Crestview Park burial site. Narrator: Lawrence Whitman, 52, was taken into custody on charges of embezzlement and evidence tampering. However, he maintained he had no knowledge of Eliza Mosley's whereabouts. Detective Olivia Reyes. Whitman refused to cooperate regarding Eliza's location. He acknowledged the embezzlement scheme, but insisted he had not harmed her. According to his statement, he had only wanted to scare her into silence about the financial discrepancies she had discovered. He claimed he had an accomplice who took things too far, but refused to identify this person. Narrator. As police and FBI agents worked to extract more information from Whitman, the search for Eliza Mosley continued with renewed urgency. If Whitman was to be believed, Eliza might still be alive. On November 24th, 10 days after Eliza's disappearance, the investigation received an anonymous tip through the Cedar Heights Police Department's hotline. Anonymous caller. Check the old Bayside storage facility on Harbor Road. Unit 27. You need to hurry. Narrator. The call lasted just 7 seconds. It came from a public phone booth at a gas station on the outskirts of Cedar Heights, one of the few remaining phone booths in the area. Security footage showed a figure in a hooded jacket, face obscured, making the brief call. Detective Olivia Reyes. We immediately dispatched units to Bayside Storage. It's an older facility that had been largely abandoned after newer, climate-controlled storage businesses opened closer to downtown. Only about a third of the units were still actively rented. The property was scheduled for demolition in early 2024. Narrator. When officers arrived at Bayside Storage at 2:37 p.m., they found the main gate locked but damaged, as if someone had forced entry. Unit 27 was located at the far end of the complex, partially hidden from the road by overgrown vegetation. Officer Marcus Thompson. The padlock on Unit 27 had been cut. The door was closed but not secured. We approached with caution, announcing our presence. When there was no response, we opened the door. Narrator. Inside Unit 27, officers discovered what appeared to be a hastily abandoned holding site. There was a cot, a portable camping toilet, several empty water bottles, and food wrappers. Duct tape residue was found on the cot's metal frame, suggesting restraints had been used and removed. Detective Olivia Reyes. The storage unit showed clear evidence of recent occupation. The most significant find was a handwritten note placed prominently on the cot. It read, "She's not here. Moving her was necessary. The person you arrested isn't working alone." Narrator. Forensic teams documented and collected evidence from the storage unit. The findings were troubling. Forensic technician Sarah Williams. We found hair consistent with Eliza Mosley's on the cot. There were traces of the same industrial cleaner that was on her jacket. Most significantly, we found a small bloodstain on the concrete floor that preliminary testing indicated was human blood. The amount was small, consistent with a minor injury, rather than a life-threatening wound. Narrator. The storage unit rental records showed that Unit 27 had been leased 6 months earlier to a woman named Margaret Fuller, paying cash for a 1-year contract. The ID used for the rental agreement was later determined to be fraudulent. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski. The discovery of the storage unit confirmed our suspicion that this was a planned operation involving multiple perpetrators. The anonymous tip suggested a possible falling out among the conspirators. We intensified our interrogation of Lawrence Whitman, confronting him with evidence from the storage unit. Narrator. After 5 hours of interrogation and faced with mounting evidence, Lawrence Whitman finally revealed the identity of his accomplice, Victor Blackwell, Phillips Manufacturing's head of security. Detective Olivia Reyes. According to Whitman, Blackwell had been a willing participant in the embezzlement scheme, helping to falsify security logs to cover inventory discrepancies. When Eliza began asking questions about the Phillips account, Whitman claimed it was Blackwell who suggested they handle the problem permanently. Narrator. At 11:45 p.m. on November 24th, a tactical team surrounded Victor Blackwell's residence, a remote cabin approximately 15 miles outside Cedar Heights. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski. Blackwell's property was isolated, bordered by woods on 3 sides. Satellite imagery showed a main cabin and a detached garage. We approached with full tactical gear, treating the situation as a potential hostage scenario. Narrator. As officers prepared to make entry, They observed movement inside the cabin. Moments later, the sound of a single gunshot echoed through the property. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski. We immediately breached the premises. Inside, we found Victor Blackwell deceased from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. A handwritten note on the kitchen table read only, Warehouse 17, Port District. Southwest corner. Narrator. Without delay, law enforcement redirected to the Cedar Heights Port District, an industrial area with numerous warehouses serving the city's modest shipping industry. Detective Olivia Reyes. Warehouse 17 was an older facility used primarily for seasonal storage. At that time of year, it was largely empty. We established a perimeter and entered with extreme caution, unsure of what we might find. Narrator. The warehouse was dark and cavernous. Officers systematically searched the space, proceeding to the southwest corner as indicated in Blackwell's note. Officer Marcus Thompson. The southwest section contained a small office area with a bathroom and storage closet. The door to the storage closet was secured with a padlock that had been recently installed. It looked newer than everything else in the building. Narrator. Officers breached the padlock. Inside the cramped 8-by-10-foot storage closet, illuminated only by their flashlight beams, they found Eliza Mosley. Officer Marcus Thompson. She was lying on a thin mattress on the floor, wrists and ankles bound with zip ties. She was conscious but disoriented, dehydrated but alive. Her first words were, "Did you find them? The files? Did you get the files?" Narrator. Eliza was immediately transported to Cedar Heights Memorial Hospital. She had suffered dehydration, minor lacerations to her wrists from the restraints, and mild hypothermia, but no life-threatening injuries. The physical trauma, however, was only part of her ordeal. 3 days after her rescue, when doctors determined she was physically and emotionally stable enough, Eliza Mosley provided her full account of what had happened on the evening of November 14th and the 10 days that followed. Eliza Mosley. I went for my usual run after work. I'd been stressed about the Phillips account discrepancies I'd found. Running helps me think. I was about a mile into my run when I heard someone call my name. When I turned, I saw Victor Blackwell. I recognized him from meetings at Phillips Manufacturing when they'd visit our office. Before I could react, he sprayed something in my face. It burned my eyes, made me dizzy. I tried to scream, but he covered my mouth. That's the last thing I remember before waking up in that storage unit. When I came to, I was tied to that cot. Victor told me they knew I'd discovered their embezzlement scheme. He said I had 2 choices. Agree to disappear to South America with a new identity and a share of the money, or not survive the week. He said they'd make it look like I'd fallen into the lake during my run. An accident. Detective Olivia Reyes. Eliza's account aligned with our investigation findings. Blackwell had initially approached her as if offering a corrupt bargain. Her silence for a share of the stolen funds. When she refused, the situation escalated from bribery to abduction and, potentially, planned murder. Eliza Mosley, I was moved twice. First from somewhere near the park. I think it was a vehicle, maybe a van, to the storage unit. Then, after about a week, from the storage unit to the warehouse. Victor said they were adjusting the plan because the police were getting too close. He seemed increasingly agitated, arguing on the phone with someone, I assume Lawrence Whitman. I gathered that things weren't going according to their plan. Narrator. According to Eliza, Victor Blackwell was becoming erratic in the final days, sometimes appearing remorseful, other times threatening. Eliza Mosley. The night before you found me, Victor came in looking panicked. He said his partner had been arrested. He left me food and water and said he needed to take care of something. That was the last time I saw him. I heard on the news later that he took his own life. Narrator. Most significantly, Eliza revealed what had initially drawn her attention to the Phillips Manufacturing account. Eliza Mosley. It wasn't just the numbers that didn't add up. It was the pattern. They were reporting phantom inventory. Aerospace components that supposedly existed, but actually didn't. But they were still fulfilling all their orders to customers. That meant they were either shipping defective parts or parts that hadn't gone through proper quality control. We're talking about components that go into commercial aircraft. People's lives could have been at risk. Narrator: Eliza had downloaded evidence of the quality control bypass onto a secure USB drive, which she had hidden in her apartment before her disappearance. This evidence, retrieved by investigators following her rescue, would prove crucial in the broader case against Phillips Manufacturing. FBI Special Agent Daniel Kowalski: The evidence Ms. Mosley gathered extended the case far beyond financial crimes. The Federal Aviation Administration launched an immediate investigation into all Phillips Manufacturing components currently in service. 2 commercial aircraft manufacturers initiated voluntary inspections of potentially affected systems. Narrator: In the weeks following Eliza Mosley's rescue, the case expanded significantly. Lawrence Whitman faced charges of embezzlement, conspiracy, kidnapping, and numerous safety violations related to the aerospace components. He ultimately accepted a plea deal, receiving a 25-year federal prison sentence in exchange for full cooperation with authorities. The investigation at Phillips Manufacturing revealed that the embezzlement scheme had been orchestrated by Victor Blackwell and Lawrence Whitman with the knowledge and participation of 2 other executives. All were charged, and the company faced substantial fines and restructuring requirements. Detective Olivia Reyes: One question remained partially unanswered. Who made the anonymous call that led us to the storage unit? Our working theory is that it was Victor Blackwell himself. After Whitman's arrest, Blackwell may have realized the inevitability of his own capture and decided to ensure Eliza would be found alive, perhaps as a final act of conscience before taking his own life. Narrator: As for Eliza Mosley, her recovery journey began with physical healing, but extended to addressing the psychological trauma of her ordeal. Jessica Mosley: My sister is the strongest person I know. She's in therapy now, working through everything. She's decided to move to Denver to be closer to family, at least for a while. But she's also committed to testifying in the ongoing cases. She says she needs to see justice through to the end. Narrator: 6 months after her rescue, Eliza Mosley returned to Crestview Park, not to run, but to confront the location that had changed her life. Eliza Mosley: Coming back here was difficult but necessary. What happened to me wasn't about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was about standing up for what's right, noticing something wrong, and refusing to look the other way. I won't let fear keep me from living my life, or from doing the right thing again in the future. Narrator: The Cedar Heights incident, as it came to be known locally, led to significant changes in the aerospace manufacturing industry's oversight and quality control processes. The FAA implemented new verification protocols, and Bayview Financial established an anonymous whistleblower program for employees who identify potential financial or safety irregularities. Police Chief Robert Garrison: This case reminds us that financial crimes aren't just about money. When people cut corners for profit, there can be real-world consequences that extend far beyond balance sheets. Thanks to Eliza Mosley's attention to detail and remarkable courage, a potentially catastrophic safety issue was averted. Narrator: Crestview Park remains a popular destination for Cedar Heights residents. A small plaque was installed near the lake trail, not commemorating the crime, but celebrating resilience. It reads simply, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." The Eliza Mosley case is technically closed, though some psychological questions may never be fully answered. What drives seemingly respectable professionals to risk others' lives for financial gain? How do ordinary people find extraordinary courage when confronted with life-threatening circumstances? And how thin is the line between our everyday world and the shadows where crimes like these take place? In Cedar Heights, life has returned to its normal rhythm. People still jog in Crestview Park as evening falls. Financial analysts still scrutinize reports for inconsistencies. And somewhere, perhaps, another ordinary person is noticing something that doesn't quite add up, standing at the threshold of their own moment of truth. The following was a dramatization of events that took place in Cedar Heights, a city that exists only in our collective imagination. The stories, people, and places depicted are fictional. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. This has been the Cedar Heights Incident, Episode 1 of Beneath the Surface, a Stories from the Dark production. Join us next time as we explore another case from the shadows of our fictional world, where ordinary places harbor extraordinary stories.